Hey guys, it's Brandon Miniman from Pocketnow.com, and this is the hardware review of the Samsung Captivate on AT&T. Let's get to it. Okay, so the Captivate has several sensors up here. We have a proximity sensor and a light sensor, which does a good job at regulating screen brightness and, of course, of turning off the screen when you're on a call. The Super AMOLED screen has a really interesting blue hue to it when it's turned off, and I really like that. It's very much different than other devices like the Google Nexus 1, kind of has a gray hue to it, and the iPhone 4, which has a black hue to it. So I don't think that was on purpose, but it's just a way that the Super AMOLED screen is made. Has a cool little glow. So the screen is 4 inches, which, is a really good size. It's not massive like the Droid X, but it's not kind of smallish like the iPhone 4, or even like the Google Nexus 1, which has a 3.7-inch display. I think it's a really good size for text entry, for seeing things on the screen without really compromising the form factor, making it too large. Continuing on, we have 4 capacitive buttons down here, and it's interesting how little bit of a space there is between the Samsung logo and these 4 capacitive buttons. Menu, home, back, and search. They have a good amount of sensitivity to them, and they glow when you press on them if it's a dark room. And by default, you get a little bit of haptic feedback. Actually, you get haptic feedback when you press anything on the screen by default. I turn this off to save a little bit on battery. So let's turn this around to the top. And what we have here is a little door for the microUSB or the microUSB port, which actually also doubles for TV out, and you need a special cable to do that. It doesn't come with the TV out cable. So we can close the door. It's a very sturdy door, a nice thing to have, although it's really not that necessary because you could just have the port exposed all the same, although you get a little bit of extra protection by having the door there. 3.5mm headphone jack. Turning over to the side, we have the volume rocker in the typical place on the left side of the device. Going down to the bottom, we have the microphone. This doesn't have 2 microphones like the Droid X and the iPhone 4 and the Nexus 1 to do noise cancellation, unfortunately. Over here on the right side, kind of a strange place, is the standby button. So you can tap it over there and it will unlock or turn on the display. And we'll talk about software in a future video. Back here we have a 5-megapixel camera, but there is no flash, which is really annoying because a lot of times you need a flash, low light situations. We have this really cool looking back battery cover, which is actually made out of real metal. I'll show you that in a second. We've got the Galaxy S branding. Samsung is really pushing this. The Galaxy S devices will be on all 4 carriers, and they want to make sure that when someone looks at your phone, they say, that's a Galaxy S smartphone. This is for the speakerphone. The way you get the back battery cover off is kind of interesting. You move that down, and then you can slide open the battery door here. We have a 1500 milliamp hour battery. Here I've got the micro SIM adapter because I just came from the iPhone 4. I'll put a link up on the video if you want to see more about that particular part. This is the slot for the micro SD card. Unfortunately, it is swappable when you have the battery in. A lot of phones make you take out the battery to swap the micro SD card. Not the case with the Captivate, which is quite nice. And as I mentioned, this is a real metal backing, very thin and very light. We can slide this back on if you get it just right, and it clicks into place. There we go. Now, something I find remarkable about the Captivate is how thin it feels. It's 9.9 millimeters thick, which is amongst the thinnest smartphones that are out there. And I think it achieves this thin feel by the way that the edges are tapered. Not only are the sides tapered so that you get a really thin line here, but the top and the bottom are tapered that way, kind of like a wedge. It feels like a big wedge. You can see on the bottom it's tapered up. So when you pick up the phone, you're really feeling these thin edges on the top and the sides, and it feels like the thinnest smartphone out there, even thinner than the iPhone 4, which claims to be the thinnest phone on the market. And if you look at it sort of from a stacked point of view, you can see how the Captivate is a little bit thicker than the iPhone 4, but in hand, it just feels extremely thin and also very light. And the materials that are used on the Captivate are pretty high quality. I think the build quality is quite nice. Because of its lightweight, some may think that it feels cheap, but when you get down to it and you look at the materials and sort of the craftsmanship that went into making the phone, you realize that it's a nicely built phone and the build quality is actually quite solid. Samsung makes some really good products. So coming up soon, we're going to talk about the software on the Samsung Captivate. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching. That's it for now.